all-out war with Hezbollah is becoming more likely every day, but Israel is already taking steps to shape the battlefield by destroying Hezbollah's rocket launchers one by one over southern Lebanon. But Israelis are also wondering how a ballistic missile fired by the Houthis in Yemen made it all the way to central Israel. The IDF is denying the Houthi claim that it was a hypersonic missile, but that still leaves the question of how it was able to evade all the defenses of the Jewish state. Meanwhile, there is great fear in Yemen about what Israel might do in response. Everyone knows that the Hubaydah port was almost destroyed in the last Israeli strike and probably can't withstand another one. Closer to home, the IDF continues to carry out security operations in Judea and Samaria, including an operation overnight Sunday in the Etzion area south of Jerusalem. Instead of another fence, the IDF is digging a trench along the border with Jordan in an effort to counter the smuggling of weapons and narcotics. At the same time, the IDF estimates that it has taken control of all the smuggling tunnels along the Philadelphi Corridor. Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 346th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and all its terror proxy groups in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. Before we start with today's report, I will ask you to take a moment and click the subscribe button so that you never miss an episode of Boots on the Ground. Public statements made in recent days by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and others indicate that Israel's patience with the continued firing of rockets into the Galilee by Hezbollah is running out. There are many other clues about what is going on behind the scenes, and it all points to the conclusion that what is being planned will be much bigger and more intense than anything we've seen before. As a friend of mine sometimes says, I have never claimed to be a prophet, but I have some predictions to make about what might happen next. There are different scenarios being considered, and one of them is that several different arenas will all erupt at the same time. This possibility comes from Iran's endless threats to activate all of its proxies to attack Israel at once. To give a quick review, their most capable proxy is Hezbollah itself, followed by the Houthis in Yemen, and a long list of smaller, less capable, but still dangerous militia groups they've built up in Iraq and Syria. We can also add to this the terrorist and criminal forces they've recently armed and sponsored in Judea and Samaria in the heart of Israel. Last on the list is Hamas in the Gaza Strip, which has been almost entirely annihilated in the last 11 months of battle with the IDF. But we want to focus on the possible scenarios on Israel's northern border, as this is the most dangerous front for Israel. Once again, these are my predictions based on what I know. Israel is likely to get things started at a time of its own choosing by launching attacks meant to decapitate Hezbollah's command and control apparatus. Hundreds of IDF aircrafts will be in the sky, firing a massive number of missiles and bombs on Hezbollah's command positions, rocket launching sites, ammunition storage facilities, and firing positions. This effort will be supported by a massive barrage from the Artillery Corps, which is deployed along the border, as well as the Navy, whose ships are in position off the Lebanese coast and ready to fire the weapons at Hezbollah as well. At some point, when these softening up attacks have run their course, the political echelon will have to make a decision about whether or not to launch a ground operation into southern Lebanon. This decision will be heavily dependent on the amount of destruction the bombardment has to manage to do to Hezbollah's capabilities, as well as the inevitable international pressure Israel will feel to stop attacking. But most important of all will be the response of Hezbollah, whether or not they will be willing to agree to retreat north of the Litani River as UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which ended the Second Lebanon War in 2006, requires them to do. If they will agree to this, then a ground invasion by Israel will not be necessary. If they refuse, then it will be inevitable. Such a ground invasion will be very costly for both sides, with intense fighting both above and below ground, inside villages and also in the countryside. The civilian population is aware of this and has been trying to get out of this area as quickly as possible. The Lebanese journalist Tony Bolos recently spoke with the Saudi El Hadat news portal, saying that according to reports, there was a mass flight of the population from southern Lebanon towards Beirut, to the point of creating traffic jams on the Sidon road. This phenomenon reflects the fear on the Lebanese streets, especially in the south, of the possibility of an all-out war and a wider conflict. He added that Hezbollah is having difficulty dealing with the situation. At the beginning of this war, the Hezbollah leadership thought it would be a short round of fighting, but it has developed into a long war of attrition, and they are running out of many things, including rocket launchers, but also including experienced and trained field commanders. Their ability to harm Israel has been greatly reduced, and this process continues even as you are watching this video. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on developments regarding the front against Hezbollah. But to stay updated in real time on what is happening in Israel, go to our website tbnisrael.com/news, which brings you real-time news with boots on the ground. Or follow us on TBN Israel's social media platforms to get regular updates on the truth. Switching our focus to the Gaza Strip, where fighting continues, although a lower intensity than before. In the last 24 hours, the IDF spokesman announced that the Air Force had destroyed the Hamas command and control center that had been set up inside a school in Bet Hanun in the northern Gaza Strip. Last Thursday, the IDF published a new assessment on the fighting in the area of the Philadelphi Corridor and the city of Rafah, which included the statement that the Rafah brigade has been defeated. It also said that since May, the IDF has found 9 tunnels running under the border between Egypt and Rafah and has succeeded in demolishing most of the tunnels that Hamas used to smuggle weapons and other contraband into Gaza from Egypt. They also found many underground bunkers used to store these items until they could be distributed throughout the Gaza Strip. However, much work remains to be done in exposing and clearing this underground network. For now, it is clear that the IDF has managed to destroy many underground weapons factories, tunnels, and massive stockpiles of weapons and ammunition meant to be used against Israel. This is a great accomplishment, more significant even than the elimination of so many terrorist operatives. It means that Hamas is a much less dangerous threat to Israel than it was on October 6, 2023, the day before they started this war, by launching a massacre. They still have some weapons and people willing to use them, but they have been reduced to the level of a poorly organized terrorist and guerrilla organization in the region, as they were 20 years ago during the Second Intifada. Most of their most highly trained and capable people have been eliminated, including the Rafah brigade, as the IDF report stated. Once again, the report is not meant to say that this brigade has suffered complete destruction, but its command and control capabilities have been crushed. Most of their communication and training infrastructure had been destroyed, and most of their most capable fighters have been permanently taken off the battlefield. But again, the job is far from over. The IDF still has work to do in the Gaza Strip, including finding and demolishing more tunnels and rescuing our hostages. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to update you on progress in the Gaza Strip. We ask you to help us spread the truth by sharing our videos on YouTube and following us on social media. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. We also ask you to pray for the residents of the border communities who have suffered so much during this war, and they're still suffering. But many of you have been asking us in the comment sections, how can we support Israel practically? One way to do so is support the economy of Israel by buying Israeli products. On that note, I want to introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, Arza. Each Arza box delivers to your doorstep is filled with flavors, scents, and craftsmanship made here in the Holy Land. This is how you can contribute to our effort. Go to www.arzabox.com and receive fresh, original, handcrafted products. And not only that, you can now use our exclusive 10% discount on your Arts Box subscription by entering the code TBNIL. Remember, it's a beautiful gift, it's a souvenir from the Holy Land, and most importantly, it's a blessing for Israel and for the people of Israel. Now back to the news, and it's about yet another miracle here in Israel. Yesterday, an Iranian-built missile was fired at central Israel by the Iranian-backed Houthi terror group in Yemen. Although it was tracked by Israeli and American radars from the moment that it was launched, it managed to avoid attempts to shoot it down, and the warhead detonated after hitting the ground in an open area near the central Israeli city of Lod. The resulting crater was 4 meters deep, indicating a large explosive charge delivered by this missile. There's a few different stories circulating on the internet about this missile particularly, including statements by the Houthis that it was a hypersonic weapon that took only 12 minutes to fly from its launch point in northwestern Yemen to its impact point in central Israel. There are also stories about how Israel fired several interceptor missiles from its Arrow and Iron Dome systems, but they failed to stop the Houthi missile. Let's take a closer look at these claims. To start with, the word hypersonic is meant to inspire fear, but when we break it down, we can see that this is mostly an exaggeration. That's because a hypersonic missile travels at 5 times the speed of sound, and many ordinary ballistic missiles travel at this speed. But in military terms, a missile has to be able to maneuver at these speeds in order to be truly hypersonic, and thus much more difficult to intercept. The missile that the Houthis fired yesterday does not live up to this standard, and in fact, it was a missile that the IDF is very familiar with and has encountered before, which leads us to the second narrative about how the IDF failed to intercept this missile. That is flatly untrue, as the IDF reports that one Arrow interceptor did in fact hit the incoming missile but failed to destroy it immediately. Instead, it took a few more moments for the incoming missile to disintegrate, with the warhead detaching and eventually blowing up after it hit the ground. The IDF is investigating all aspects of this incident and will soon know what exactly happened. It has stated many times, and it's worth repeating once more, that no missile defense shield is ever going to provide 100% protection. With all of this in mind, the next question is, what will Israel do in response to this attack? Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hinted on Monday morning that Israel would exact a heavy price from the Houthis, but the scope and timing of this response is still unclear. The assessment in Israel is that in the end there will be some kind of reaction, although the set of considerations will probably also include the fact that the attack ultimately failed and did not result in casualties. However, there is a fear that this attack means that the Houthis are not deterred by the Israeli airstrike on the port of Hodeidah in July. If Israel does not respond significantly to this latest attack, it might encourage the Houthis to try again, and the next time they might do serious damage. The attack on the port of Hodeidah, let's remember, came not only after the attack on Tel Aviv, but also after many months of provocations by the Houthis. With all of this in mind, the El Sharak El Awsat newspaper, which is published in Lebanon in the Arabic language, reported on Sunday that in Yemen there is great fear of an Israeli response. This includes fears that Israel will hit the Hodeidah port once more, doing further damage to this vitally important point of entry into the country for supplies that everyone needs. The Houthis use this port to bring weapons from Iran into the country, but it also is used to bring food and medicine into the territory that they control. There can be no doubt that if they have to choose between Iranian weapons and food to feed the people who live in these territories, they will choose Iranian weapons, and their subjects will starve. Once again, I will ask you to help TBN Israel spread the truth by sharing our videos on YouTube and following us on social media. You can also support us and help us create more videos like this one by going to our website at www.tbn.org/Israel or clicking the donate button on YouTube. Switching our focus once again to the eastern border of Israel, the fear of terrorist infiltration from Jordanian territory has returned. Therefore, the IDF is accelerating the implementation of the plan to dig a canal in the area of the northern and southern Arava section. This part of the border can easily be crossed on foot and also on vehicle. This makes it a tempting route for smugglers, but it's also difficult to build a fence to keep the smugglers out due to soil conditions. This made it necessary to build a different type of barrier, and although the IDF admits it is not a perfect solution, it will make it more difficult for smugglers to move back and forth across this border. IDF engineers are working on this project to dig this trench from Eilat north, and it is estimated that this project will soon be completed. Switching our focus once again to events in Judea and Samaria. And to set the stage for this story, it is important to understand that the Iranians, like other parties in the Middle East, saw the October 7th attack as an achievement that they believe marked the beginning of the end of the Jewish state. The horrific events of that day encouraged them to increase their efforts to terrorize Israelis, and their latest avenue of attack is in Judea and Samaria. This is a way that they think they can finally strike at the soft underbelly of the country, the Gush Dan region, which includes Tel Aviv and its suburbs, where over 60% of Israel's population live. One man who believes deeply that this plan will succeed is Hamas field commander Zahar el-Jabrin, who hinted last May that the Hamas movement has many cards that it has not yet used. In any case, the IDF knows that it cannot tolerate the establishment of Iranian proxy groups in Judea and Samaria, similar to the Iranian buildup of Hamas in the Gaza Strip and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Therefore, the IDF is in the process of an offensive to eliminate this threat while it is still in its early stages of developments. Once again, I will ask you to please help us spread the truth by sharing our videos on YouTube and subscribing to this YouTube channel. Support Israel, and most importantly, pray for the situation. Pray for the peace of the people of Israel. Pray for the abductees and their quick return home. Pray for the resilience of the IDF soldiers. Pray for the peace of all the civilians that are affected by these terrorist groups. And most importantly, unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.